Okay, okay, great. Welcome everyone. We're recording this to harvest the insights generated and to help spread the word about this project. I'm Edwin Rutch from the XR Empathy Circle work group. And this is an empathy cafe to explore how Extinction Rebellion can best build a facilitator network to embed new democratic tools into the DNA of society. And really, it's the world is, we're dealing with XR. We're dealing with the challenge of climate change, and it's having increasing devastating consequences on the well-being of the planet and future generations. So we're also dealing with the current failures of democracy and all the different forms of government, for that matter, that are not adequately addressing the challenges of climate change. And so we feel the solution is to come up with deeper and more inclusive forms of democracy, and that's what we're here to build in this group. And so I wanted to just start with a short outline of our cafe. We're going to go for 2 hours. We're going to start with some very short participant introductions. We're going to zip through those. We're going to have an introduction, about 10 minutes, by Paul. And Paul, how do you pronounce your last name? It's there on the screen, but I can never.
Thistlethwaite.
Thistlethwaite. Thanks. And then we're going to, so then Paul will give that introduction to the Future Democracy Hub and the Facilitator Network. And then we're going to have a short introductory video on how to take part in an empathy circle. And while that's happening, I'll be sorting people into groups. And then we're going to have these breakout empathy circles, and we'll explore the topic of how might we best build an XR facilitator network. And what tangible action steps will you personally take? And then we'll, at the last, about 30 minutes before our time is up, we'll come back into the full group and we'll do a group debrief. We'll go around, everyone will share just their basic takeaways, kind of what you came up with in the group meeting. And then for those of you that are the most hardy, we're going to have a 30-minute overtime. If you can stay for a little bit, we're going to pose some questions to get some feedback. So with that, we can start with just really quick introductions. And Carolina, would you select people? And I'll model it. So it's name, Edwin Rutch from San Francisco Bay Area. And I'm part of the XR Empathy Circle work group. And yeah, that's it. So Carolina, would you choose people, select people to introduce themselves?
Okay, it's about 32 people.
Very quickly. Yeah, I got to zip through it.
So my name is Carolina. I'm calling from Poland, and I am part of member of Empathy Circle. And the next person is Adam Floater.
Hi, Adam Floater here from London, Ealing.
Okay. Bill.
Bill Filler here from Northern California, part of the XR facilitated training.
Okay. Nadia.
I'm Nadia Frankie from Brighton in England.
Okay. Nikki.
Hello, sorry, I've only just joined.
Nikki Kennelly. Okay. Adam Floater, you have been already. Adrian.
Hi, I'm Adrian Nörtli from Zurich, Switzerland.
Okay. Hello. Oh, Alison Donaldson. Alison.
Allison is muted.
I try to unmute Alison. I can't unmute.
Sorry. Yeah, Alison Donaldson from Brighton in the UK.
Okay. Oh, my screen is changing very quickly, so I probably will have problem with finding all the people, so I try. Paul.
Yeah, Paul Thistlethwaite. I've coordinated Future Democracy Hub and I live in St Albans in England.
Okay, Lou.
Lou Zwire. I'm from the North Bay in California, United States, and been doing empathy circle work for a while, and I'll be facilitating today.
Sophia.
Thea from Sweden. I'm just a big fan of Edwin's work.
Mila. You are muted, Mila.
Mila from Australia. I just joined the circle from the NVC groups. Yeah, I think I know one of the members.
Art.
Hi, my name is Art O'Leary and I'm in Dublin in Ireland, and I'm involved with XR Ireland, and I've joined this because, well, it's obviously empathy is something we have to work on.
Thank you. Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm from Wales. I'm part of the Future Democracy Hub in the UK and People's Assembly Circle and local working group in Cardiff.
Okay. Carlos. Carlos.
Okay. Yeah. Hello, I'm Carlos. I live in Mahanheath in Wales, in UK. I'm part of my XR local group. It's the first time in an empathy circle. I have been looking, I have watched the videos, so I have no idea about what happened. But yeah, my first.
Person whose information name is XR Communities. XR Communities.
Hi, my name's Max. I'm in Staines in the UK.
Hello. Liz. Liz, you are muted.
Hi, I'm Liz Tufte in northern Colorado in the US, Fort Collins XR.
Hello.
Hi.
Stephen.
Yes, Steve Buckley. I'm located in Massachusetts in the US. I'm a member of the US chapter of the International Association for Public Participation.
Hello. Tom.
Hey, Tom from London, XR Haringey.
Hello. Richard.
Oh, hello, I'm Richard. I'm living in Berlin at the moment, and I have a background in nonviolent communication and improv theater.
Because my screen is changing, I'm not sure. Peter Anderson, did you introduce yourself? No.
No. I'm Peter, obviously Anderson, in Hackney XR in London.
Hello. Rebecca.
Hello, Rebecca Stauffer here. I'm from Northern California, Redwood Coast. I'm interested in both XR and the empathy, but very rural where I live.
Dita, Bridget.
Hello, I am Dita. I live in Dartmoor in England, and I do different types of nonviolent communication, grief tending, and I'm in different XR groups as well, so I'm quite interested. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea.
Hello, Andrea. I'm in Horsham, England, Horsham XR group.
Hello. Peter McFadden.
Hello, I'm in Frome in the west of England. I'm part of the Future Democracy Hub, and I'm also on the Climate Emergency Circle of XR.
Whoa, my screen again is changing. I hope I will not miss anybody. Debbie.
Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm in Cardiff in South Wales in the UK. I'm really interested in regen sort of culture, quite new to this, so.
I'm not sure how to pronounce the name Sian. Sian.
Hi, it's Sian. My name's Sian Cox, and I'm coordinator for the Brecon local group, and I'm doing talks and trainings as part of the mass mobilisation across Wales, part of our little team of talks and trainings people. But I've now got one eye on how we create new ways of living after whatever is going to happen happens. So this is a big part of it.
Yeah. Claire, you have to unmute yourself.
I'm Claire. I'm one of the many people on here who's a bit sick. XR, various groups. I'm in Scotland, but I'm usually in London. And I've done empathy circles and NVC, and that's about it. Thanks.
Eva. Hello, Eva.
Hi, I'm in Toronto, and I would like to just be a listener today. I'm recovering from a sore throat thing, so
Okay.
I will be just observing and listening. Thank you.
Diana.
Hello, I'm Diana. I'm from Moscow, and this is my first empathy cafe.
Hello. Ivy.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Ivy, and I am with XR Chicago. And outside of XR right now, we're hard at work trying to stop our country from starting another war.
And Peter D.
I'm Peter. I'm from Chilton's XR in the UK. I've done empathy circle sort of things before, so I'm going to have to go shortly. I was just seeing how it all worked, so I've managed to get Zoom working fine, so that's progress. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'm afraid that there might be people who I omit on my screen because my screen was changing. Is there anybody who didn't have chance to introduce him or herself? Please just pop up. Okay, it seems Edwin that that's all.
Thanks. So next is Paul, who's going to give a short introduction into the Future Democracy Hub, the Facilitator Network, and really what sort of insights you're looking for and some new updates as well. Take it away, Paul.
Thanks, Edwin, and thanks, everybody. Yeah, it's really great to be here. I have to firstly apologize. I'm not going to be staying today. I'm at full capacity, really, even though this is one of the best things I've done today. I'm not going to stay until the very end. But there are 4 people here from the Future Democracy Circle. So Peter, Alison, who's on the advisory circle, Claire and Joe. So we're very much listening to everything you're saying, and I will speak to Edwin retrospectively. So Edwin summarized what we're really about already really succinctly. Democracy very much in need of an upgrade, and but a lot of the solutions already exist. We don't need to reinvent those, and we're very much about facilitating these new democratic tools into the culture, and really focusing on what it takes to deliver that. So we're very much an action group, and one measure is just the level of participation of the culture and everybody in the culture. So we can really build this Buckminster Fuller style new model, new solution of democracy by getting out there and getting active. engaging, and then being together so that we can then learn from each other. So very much this collaborative inquiry. So the main method is, as Edwin said, we're building this network of facilitators who can really work together and explore that terrain. And it's really stepped up quite a lot in the last month or so, last couple of months. There's been a lot of activity. There's a lot of mobilization, especially in the UK, and those principles and applications can be applied anywhere in the world, and we'd obviously be supportive of that. But just to give you an update on some of the latest, we've got a subcircle called Community Democracy, which is still evolving. It's still in its kind of creation phase, but an amazing team, dynamic individuals who are really up for getting out there and making this happen. And so watch this space. We're going to be engaging an enormous amount with especially people in the UK initially, but then using those templates to take out further into the world. And one of the things that we're in the process of doing now is that there's a lot of plans, and we're conscious that those plans have evolved very quickly, and there's an element of wanting to pause and reflect on is this exactly what we want, and bring in the expertise, people like yourselves, people who've got some sense of what's needed in the world, and just to check in and make sure that we're on track. So this is still in evolution, and one of the things that we're learning is that maybe rather than going out with a particular tool saying do this, it's very much about cultivating the principles that people who are interested in building community democracy would be expected to kind of use as their guiding principles. Very much about using those principles to then be able to work autonomously and learn and engage and grow and find out what works, and then also share that. So I thought it might be useful just to share some of those principles, and people who like to write things down might want to just jot these down if they're interested. What the three ones that you may be familiar with, if you're familiar with the Future Democracy Hub and People's Assemblies, are the three pillars of any deliberative process: radical inclusivity, active listening, of which we're using a model today of that, how to learn that and get that ingrained, and trust in the processes, in ourselves and in others. So there's three which we know are already kind of in the DNA of deliberative processes. One of the ones that we think is very high on the list in terms of going out to communities and supporting and helping is very much not to go out there and say this is what we suggest you do, is the principle of confluence. Confluence referring to, like, two rivers might be a confluence of two rivers where they come together. So before going out into the community and running deliberative events, just find out what's already happening in your community, and start connecting in whichever way is the most appropriate way. That's a really big inquiry. Something that we refer to as feminization of democracy, which I'm sure is self-explanatory, whatever it means to you, bringing in a more whole rather than just a singular masculine. We know that. Oh dear, I've got my phone going, sorry about that. Another one is proximity, and the principle that if you are representing a group of people, you are very close to them as opposed to being far away. So what would that look like? So maybe in the case of a flat pack democracy, which Peter's here today, that might look like an independent representative of the community, but having lots of regular sessions with the rest of the community, so they're very close, they don't get further away from them. And another principle is that we're going out in the context of the climate and ecological emergency. So this is the main driver of the need to address this. So again, these are just proposals, but I'd be interested to hear if anybody's got any thoughts on those, but also for any fundamental principles are missing. I'm just going to say a couple more things in terms of what we're facing as a future democracy group of circles, which includes community democracy, people's assemblies, and citizens' assemblies, as well as the parent group. Some of the tensions. So there, you can see there's probably a tension evolving, and probably always is, around the need to get out there and into action because we're in an emergency, but also the need to balance that with getting it right. You know, so we don't want to send people out gung-ho and have them feel vulnerable because they aren't prepared, they aren't supported enough. So we got to build these foundations to make sure that people are supported, they're taking the next leap forward when they're ready, and we can support them in that. But it's not about rushing out there and going in at the deep end, because that might go wrong. It may overwhelm people. So there's a balance there. Just scanning down, are there any other ones which I think would be useful to say at this moment? Yeah, I think just running through everything that we're talking about that Edwin has introduced is that and this is very much coming from the advisory circle for the Future Democracy Hub, is the need to connect as individuals and as a community within the groups that are doing this. And within XR, if we're talking about coming from XR, to connect more deeply, and then we establish our own relationships with each other, and then we take that out into the world, and that's a great place to build from. If we don't have this connection ourselves, what hope have we got of facilitating that in the community? So another challenge there. I'm just looking at another one. This may not be so relevant, but one thing we're mindful of is overwhelming people with too much information. So particularly people in local XR groups, they have limited bandwidth, and we have to be mindful of making sure that we're not taking over too much of that. I think that's probably the main things that I would say at this stage directly related to what we're working on at the moment. Incredibly exciting times with such amazing people coming forward from different parts of the tool set and different parts of the world. So just a few kind of practical things. If you're not aware, our Future Democracy Hub website is xrdemocracy.uk. Actually, I haven't got that handy right now, but actually I do. Here we are. We just post that into the chat. And on there, you can connect to the community. So there's an online community. You can sign up for the facilitator network. So we've got a Lumio platform where you can find out about all of the internal events, and we've got a couple of really important workshops next week on Monday and Tuesday. If you go onto the Lumio platform, directly from that link, you'll see the adverts for those. I didn't mute in time. Excuse me. I'm one of the people who were ill, but is better, but I'm not quite completely fully better. I think that's probably it, Edwin.
Okay, great.
Thanks for being patient with me.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that introduction. And so next we want to, before we go next, we need one more person to facilitate a circle. There was some people with NVC background. Is there someone that's sort of familiar that you raise your hand? We need one more facilitator. Oh, Adrian, I think. Okay, let me.
I'm pretty convenient with nonviolent communication. I'm not so convenient with the empathy circle process, but I could figure out some way of doing it. So
great. Well, I'm going to give a little introduction here. That hopefully people have watched the video. I know people. There's a 30-minute and a 9-minute video. I'm going to give a really short introduction to the empathy circle, and it should be enough to be able to take part and facilitate too. So let's see if that's it. And okay, oh, can you, Carolina, can you give Adrian record permissions too? You don't have to record if if it's too much. There is a record button down below, Adrian. So let me just play this. It's just how to take part in an empathy circle. So next, let's look at the step-by-step how to take part. An empathy circle starts with 2 to 7 participants. Here on the screen, we have 4 participants, which I find is an ideal number. There are 4 basic roles, and the roles rotate among the participants as the empathy circle unfolds. 1, the speaker, is the first person to speak. 2 is active listener who actively listens to the speaker. There's the silent listeners, they quietly observe and witness. And the facilitator who organizes, schedules, and hosts the circle. They also do the timekeeping, and they have some experience with the process and help keep participants in the process. However, everyone has the responsibility to hold the process and the practice. So to begin with, the facilitator will start the empathy circle. They welcome the participants. They lead introductions if the participants don't know each other. The facilitator invites participants to give short introductions, for example, their name, where they're from, and something personal about themselves. The facilitator then reviews the empathy circle process to remind everyone how it works. They announce the discussion topic, if there is one. Even if there is a topic, you can always talk about what is alive for you. That is what is on your mind in the moment. And 5, they set the speaker time limits, perhaps 5 minutes, for example. And the facilitator then asks who would like to start to be the first speaker. So at that point, the participant volunteers to be the first speaker. As speaker, you select who will be your active listener, and you can select anyone that you want. You speak about the topic given or whatever's alive for you, and so you'll speak a bit until you have maybe expressed an idea or two, and then you want to pause to give the active listener a chance to recap what they understand that you are saying and feeling. If you say too much, the listener may have difficulty in reflecting it. As the active listener, you are listening to the speaker to get an understanding of what they are saying and what is important to them. You are giving them your full attention as a supportive companion on their inner journey and exploration. When the speaker pauses, you recap your understanding of what they said and how they feel by reflecting the essence of that in your own words. You can summarize, paraphrase, or even say the speaker's words back to them. Even though you may have a strong impulse to respond with your own ideas, judgments, analysis, advice, and sympathy, or even questions, resist the impulse to do so because these common responses block the speaker from moving along their internal journey. You'll be able to say whatever you want when it is your turn to be the speaker. Just do your best. If you don't reflect the understanding to the speaker's satisfaction, you can always they can always say it again. Then, as speaker, you check: do you feel understood to your satisfaction? If you do not feel understood, you can say it again, perhaps in different words. If you do feel understood, continue sharing. Again, after speaking a bit, pause to give your active listener a chance to recap their understanding of what you said. As the active listener, you again share your understanding of what the speaker said and meant. The cycle of speaking and reflecting continues until you, as the speaker, do not have anything else you'd like to say, or until you get a signal from the timekeeper. If you get a signal from the timekeeper, then finish up what you're saying in a sentence or two. After you get a final reflection, you can end your turn by saying something like, "I feel fully heard," or something like that to indicate you are done with your speaking turn. At that point, the roles then rotate. The active listener becomes the speaker. The person they select becomes the new active listener. For everyone having equal time, it is good to select someone that hasn't spoken lately, but it is your choice. The others in the circle become the silent listeners. This process of taking turns in speaking and active listening continues for whatever time is allotted for the empathy circle. For fostering deeper dialogues, I find 2 hours is a good amount of time. And this was just a very short introduction. The best way to learn the practice is just by taking part and doing it. There is more in-depth material on taking part in an empathy circle and facilitating one at empathycircle.com. I look forward. Okay, so that's the basics, and the best is just to get into an empathy circle. And we have, with this large of a group, it's a bit of a challenge with, creating all the groups and so forth. And we try to have one facilitator in each group just to sort of hold the process. So we'll be going into our groups now for about an hour. And our topic is, how might we build this network?
If I may.
Yeah.
Did you give permission to record to Adrian, because I couldn't do that?
Okay.
And please, every facilitator, prepare something to control time, because we need to give 5 minutes time to every person.
Okay, allow record.
So are we doing 5-minute turns?
I would say 4-minute turns.
4 minutes.
We're going to be 5 to a group at least. So, and we only have about an hour to go. So I'll get us started right now, and remember.
And obviously, we don't break our speech in in the middle of the sentence. We end our thought and reflecting.
Yeah. So okay. Open all the rooms, or we'll be going into the rooms. You can join them up. Okay, hello. Should be one more person.
Oh.
Make sure I'm.
It's not working. Okay.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, 5. So I'll be the timekeeper, and so our topic is, how do we build this network, a facilitator network? And if someone would like to start, perhaps you can speak to me. You'll have 4 minutes, and I can model the empathic reflection just to show how it's done. So if anyone would like to start.
I don't mind starting.
Good. Okay, let me just get the stopwatch up here. Unless someone else is good at timekeeping. Does someone have a clock for? Oh, Dita. Yeah. So 4 minutes, and then just kind of make some sound or something that. So, or because we don't see you very well, rather dark there. Okay, go ahead. I'm listening.
I haven't a clue what I'm going to say because I don't know. I have no idea how to build a facilitator network. So I'm
Okay,
going
well,
to
I'll
think
start
of.
with that. What I'm hearing is you don't have a clue of what to really say because you have no idea how to build a facilitator network.
Okay. However, you know, often we think we don't have a clue about something, and then actually, if you start trying to articulate, something comes. So. I suppose what comes to my mind, I mean, I've done quite a bit of facilitation. It's not my main job in life, but I've done quite a lot. And I'm very happy with everything I've heard from Paul and Edwin this evening. So, you know, the whole idea of having principles, but then not restricting people too much in how they run things, I think that's fantastic.
Okay, can I reflect that back?
Yes.
So you're saying that while you don't have anything right off the bat, but after a while, usually things come to you, and you have a lot of experience with facilitation, and that you really did like what we've talked about so far, and you're kind of going into what Paul is saying about having a set of principles, and that sounds like not being too structured.
Yeah, no, that's good. I almost feel completely understood already, actually. But how does it work? Should I continue or?
You have 4 minutes to keep
4 minutes,
going.
lovely,
Yeah.
lovely, fantastic, yeah. So, I mean, really, I'm literally just improvising here. I think often, if the question is recruiting the numbers of facilitators, so maybe we need to distinguish between, you know, is it about finding enough facilitators, or have we already, I don't know the basic information, whether we've already got enough or whether we're looking to collect together many more people. Is it also presumably about the way that we get people on board, and also just keeping an eye on whether the people who do come on board are learning, are getting the technique, not technique, but are happy doing it and are doing it well. I'll stop
So
there.
what I'm hearing is a series of questions. You're just trying to understand better. Is it, you know, is it trying to get people involved? Is it showing them how to do it? Or you're just trying to kind of understand what the need is, I think.
Yeah. What else? Yeah, I may have to just continue with questions because it's difficult to make any suggestions when you don't know the background. So what was going through my mind was, you know, one of the amazing things today in this meeting, in this circle, is like so often with XR Zoom calls, is we're totally international. It's just fantastic. So I'm wondering, you know, how in recruiting facilitators, you know, how you get a balance of people from different parts of the world, and that, I mean, one of the things I notice about, I've started working on Zoom quite a lot recently, and one of the things I notice is, for example, don't think we've got, there was one person in Australia, but it's the middle of the night in Australia right now. So the issue of time zones is another question I have.
So you're just continuing with the question, seeing that there's a real international group here, and just wondering, one of the questions was, you know, why is there not more people, you know, maybe from Australia, but then realizing that that there's a time zone issue. So just kind of adding to that list of questions, especially the international part. And I was just seeing from Dita that was the time too. So,
great.
So then it's my turn, and I get my 4 minutes. Let's speak to Peter, if you'd be willing to listen.
I'd love to, Edwin.
So yeah, it's been a lot to juggle, so I'm just trying to get grounded here. Also keeping track on breakout rooms and stuff like that. This is the largest group that we've had, so it's been a lot to juggle. So I just want to reflect that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I hear you. Well, being present in one sense, but obviously in your role of running the whole thing, you know, there's a little bit of you, the bit under the desk that we can't see, that's running everything else.
Yeah, and I'm really excited in terms of. I see in terms of the Democracy Hub, I just really enjoyed working, you know, with the hub, because it's been so accepting and supportive of empathy circles of what we're doing here. So I see this practice as really sort of foundational for practice for democracy. You know, just people slowing down, being willing to listen to each other is sort of a first step. And so I'm pretty, is a process. I think this is a really effective first step, kind of gateway practice.
Mm. So what I hear you reflecting is, or what I hear you saying is, how important this is to you, because you've done a lot of work with this, empathy circles and the whole principle of listening, which incidentally is, you know, very much one of the principles, isn't it, that's within the whole that Paul talked about of radical inclusivity and so on. That what you're reflecting is that you feel that empathy circles does that, and so it's really great to see the Future Democracy Hub take that up and run something like this, which could have been run in all sorts of different ways, but is using a methodology that you admire and like.
Yeah, and it's really foundational to conflict mediation. So if we go into any sort of a conflict mediation, be it families, work, community, it's getting people to slow down and listen to each other, and especially have this empathic reflection component is sort of core to conflict resolution. So I think I think democracy is about conflict resolution. You know, it's how do we work out, you know, the conflicts between us and have some skills and, you know, so the mindset and the tools for doing that.
So what you're introducing to us is the idea that empathy circles and indeed the whole core of listening is crucial within conflict resolution, but there's an overlap between democracy and conflict resolution, because what you're saying is that for democracy to work, it needs to deal with conflict resolution and difference.
Yeah, and I don't think the society really teaches that efficiently. I think there's a real dearth of, you know, skill building around democracy. It's usually like just the system structure is talked about, but just the interpersonal part's not talked about really much.
Yeah, so you're suggesting too, or what you're saying is, and I'm probably not meant to say that I agree, but I do. That you know, our education systems and our society doesn't equip us to deal with in that kind of a way.
I feel fully heard. Thank you.
So tell me, Edwin.
So now you select the next person. It's your turn to select, and you get 4 minutes.
I didn't see the time. I didn't see a detail.
I didn't go my full time. So
okay.
You don't have to. If you don't want to go your full time, you say I feel fully heard, and that sort of means you're passing. You're done.
Okay, I thought we just sat here feeling embarrassed until the 4 minutes came up, but we don't have.
No, you can just say one word and move on. So just select whoever you like.
Yeah, sure. Well, why don't I talk to Debbie then, if you're happy to listen to me. Good.
Yeah, hi Pete. I think we've met before actually, maybe under a boat in Cardiff.
Maybe. Yeah, good.
So I'm now listening and you're...
Yeah, and you're feeding back to me every now and then. I'll try and leave you, I'll try and break. You see what I mean? I'll try and do what Edwin was doing of not prattling on for too long before you need to reflect back.
So can I request a timekeeper from somebody? Because
Dita is timekeeping.
For everybody. Oh, okay, right. Okay.
Dita's going to wave at you. So I guess my main reflection so far with this is that we are all facilitators, or certainly that we have that potential.
So you feel that we all have the potential to be facilitators?
My experience, so I've come into this world, I mean, I've come into the XR world, but I've come into the whole Future Democracy Hub world, and my engagement with this has come off 8 years of being a town councillor in Britain. And the radical thing that we did differently was to say that councillors, and particularly the mayor, who's the chair, should be facilitators of meetings. I mean, that is their role, to facilitate that meeting.
So in your experience or background as in town council kind of work, you've observed that the role of the mayor, the town councillor, should be one of facilitation.
So we set up something which is very much participatory democracy rather than representative. So rather than saying, you have elected me, therefore I know everything and will now speak on your behalf, what we were saying was our role now is to extract the wisdom and the experience of the community and then make decisions based on that, you know, for the benefit of all of us, which sort of turns things upside down.
So you've already had some experience of being in a more democratic kind of process than a speaking sort of for people.
And within that, we ran what effectively were people's assemblies. I imagine some, if not all of you, have been involved in people's assemblies with Extinction Rebellion, where you know, you have a group of people, and then somebody says, right, well, one of you needs to facilitate this group, a bit like Edwin did earlier. And it's like, oh shit, I've never done this. But then, you know, whatever, 10 minutes, half an hour later, somebody has just carried out that role really well, and maybe they do need a bit more support, and maybe they learn a bit more, you know. And then after they've done that 2 or 3 times, because they just do, they suddenly find that they are well, they are doing those things of radical inclusion, and you know, a lot of the principles I think are very natural to us. So I'm not sure that they, well, no, I definitely, I want to make that positive. I think this could be quite easy.
So this, so you feel it's this kind of linking back to what you first said about the fact that we all are maybe natural facilitators, perhaps just a little bit of gaining skills, but with some experience, we start to feel more comfortable kind of in that role. And sorry, I lost the last bit.
Well, really, that I suppose that I think this is easy. I mean, that it's not that easy, but that actually this can come much more naturally. If you ask people to chair a meeting, it's like you get, no, I've never chaired anything, I can't do that. But that actually we do this. What we're talking about here, many of us do in our families, in our work, we do it all the time. And there's nothing. Yes, it needs some titivating and some adding to. But facilitation is not a difficult thing to at least enter into. To do well, I'm not suggesting that it's, you know, easy for everybody, but to at least enter into is not that big a deal.
So sort of saying something like, if we look at how we interact anyway, maybe we're actually already using some kind of facilitation skills, but we don't use them or give them that name.
Exactly. But yeah, just do it. I think at this stage, that's all I want to say.
And how heard do you feel?
How what? Oh, very. Thanks. No, I felt very listened to. Thank you. You were great.
Thank you.
Right on time. Oops. There you go.
Okay. So I guess I can speak to you then, Dita. Is that the right?
I'll keep the time anyway. I'll just possibly be a bit distracted, but I'll try not to look.
Okay. I can time keep for a while, so you're not distracted.
Wonderful. Thank you. That would be better. Hello, Debbie.
I was glad to connect with you because I'm really interested in the rewilding thing, but I'll try and keep focused on the question. And I think for me, the idea of rolling out facilitation in XR is, and I need to understand it for myself, is to understand and be able to express the context, like actually, why are we doing this? What's it for? You know, what's the purpose of having a future democracy hub, to have empathy circles or empathy cafes? You know, how is that actually going to impact on taking action on climate change?
Okay, if I understand correctly, you think that empathy circles actually are a good tool to investigate why we need to have empathy circles in general. And oh, my brain has gone blank.
Yeah, I think
I think, if I understand correctly, it's a way of slowing down, which is what I'm doing right now, and listening, and through listening, actually finding out what we really want to do and how to do it.
Because I'm thinking if I was to go to my next XR meeting and talk about the idea of empathy cafes and the Future Democracy Hub, I need to be able to kind of link the purpose of them to taking action on climate change. And at the moment, I don't feel that I can really clearly get that link. I mean, I love being listened to, which is, I think, what's drawn, and I love listening and the active listening process and nonviolent communication. So I guess that's what's drawn me to be here today, but I don't feel clear in my own mind about what the purpose is in terms of taking action on climate change.
Okay, if I can reflect back. So I have the feeling you are a bit unsure about how to link XR in general, and when you go to the meetings, you're not sure how to actually take actions about climate change, and yet you feel that it's quite important to be listened to and to listen. So there are these two parts of maybe community building that is, and now I'm interpreting, that you find important.
Yeah, it's not quite that. It's more, if the question originally was, how do we go about building a facilitation network in XR? My reflection on that would be to find a way to explain to other members how that is effective in terms of taking action on climate change.
Okay, so it's how to explain to the other members how that would be relevant for taking action on climate change.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm aware for myself that I enjoy the process of being in an empathy circle, principles of nonviolent communication, but in the context of what their effectiveness is within the XR movement. Is like I just need to build that bridge a bit more tightly and understand it. There's quite a lot of language in XR that's quite, I find quite intellectual, and kind of being able to simplify it down to make it kind of really understandable to people, general members.
So you would like to
that
find...
might be 2 things, sorry. That might be 2 things, sorry.
Well, it's fine. I'll try to recall. Sorry, it's a bit confusing because there is a time lapse there's a time lag in the image, so I'm getting kind of a synchronization between your voice and the image, and it's very distracting.
Sorry.
I'm struggling a bit with that. I have a very poor connection. So you feel that, if I understand correctly, that there is a need for nonviolent communication and empathy cafes in XR, and that explaining those technologies, those tools to the XR movement, you feel that you may want to have more arguments or more expertise to bring that message across.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that you say for sure.
Yeah, that's great. I feel very heard.
Sorry about it, was a bit confusing with the image.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Okay.
Now you select who you'd like to speak to, and I can keep time too.
I guess I would like to speak to Alison.
I would love to listen to you, Dita.
Thank you. So I think, as some people have said already, listening, actively listening, and having this time to be witnessed, not only listened by one person, but knowing that there is a group of people, that we have a circle, is really crucial for building anything community related, and that for me is the base of a future democracy as well. So again, not being represented, but actually taking action ourselves.
So what I heard you saying was the importance of not only the listener, the direct listener, but the witnesses, the importance of them for building, can't remember your exact words, but for building democracy, in fact, for doing anything really.
Yes. So also building this idea of a community. Personally, I feel possibly the most comfortable when I'm sitting in a circle with people. It's just amazing how it brings a certain safety and a certain willingness to share that is not possible in a different way. And this is very similar, so it's great. Sorry, I'm gonna go into a topic.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's lovely when it's short actually, and very clear like that. So you well basically just said you feel very comfortable in the circle. I think it's a feeling of connection, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. So I don't know if I have much more to add. I don't know how practically, other than with this group, for instance, how to spread how to build more of a network. I think that's what we are doing actually here. I think practice is important. So for me right now, the technology is a bit clunky, so it's good to do that very often and just get over that initial thing.
Great, thank you. So you were just saying that you're a bit like I was saying right at the beginning. You're not sure how we're building or going to build a facilitator network, but just doing it is really a really good place to start.
Indeed.
As we have been this evening.
Yes.
Today, sorry. It's evening here.
It's evening here, as you can see. Thank you. I feel heard. I feel fully heard.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Thank you. So have we done
just
everybody?
keep going around.
Just keep going around. Fantastic.
Just
okay.
for the time, we have about half an hour left.
Yep. Okay. So I'll speak to you, Edwin.
Okay.
Is it me speaking now? Yes, it is.
It is.
Oh gosh, the second time round. Yeah. It's been great to hear everybody else. And I realized that I interpreted the question a bit narrowly. I thought I was being asked originally, how do we build the facilitator network? And I think what I've appreciated this evening for most of us, not for you, Edwin, what I've appreciated is just hearing the diversity and getting to know the four of you. That's probably enough for one chunk.
So I was a little distracted. Sorry. Let me see. So I think you're appreciating being here. That just being here is a positive step, and you're feeling that you sort of interpreted the question of building a network kind of maybe too narrowly, and that there's sort of more of a broader way of looking at it, which is about connection, us connecting here. And sort of appreciating that, sort of valuing and appreciating that.
Yes. I mean, that's right. That's pretty close. I'd like to take up a point that I think, was it Dieter who made the point about language, or was it Debbie? I can't remember. Anyway, the point about the language being a bit intellectual. It was Debbie, wasn't it? I think it was Debbie. Yeah, it was Debbie. Yeah, I'm very interested in that because I mean, language is one of, I may not be the only person here, but language is really one of my great loves. I love language and love, I love to see how people express things, and I always pay a lot of attention when the language is too much jargon or as Debbie said, too intellectual. I mean, I don't use intellectual as a dirty word, but in this case, I completely understand what Debbie means. And so I suppose actually a common language is really important when you're building a network.
So you're seeing, you're addressing the issue of talking intellectually, and that you're very familiar with language, and it sounds like you really value it, and that you're also seeing that if we have a common language, that's important too.
I'll qualify that a bit, because when I say common language, I don't mean that everybody has to speak in exactly the same words, but it's more a kind of language mindfulness that I would be looking for in a facilitator network. I was saying to Paul his name is difficult to say, Thistlethwaite. I was saying to Paul recently that I found the language of, now what was the expression? Oh yeah, embedding, what was it? Embedding something into the DNA of XR. And for some people who are scientists, DNA is fine as a metaphor, but embedding something into DNA, it's a mixed metaphor. And I noticed that everybody is using that phrase without questioning it. And so I started to question it.
Okay, so there seems to be a couple things here. One is the importance of having sort of a common language and common understanding. If you're creating a network, to maybe have this common language, as well as being sensitive to the language that you do use. For example, the metaphor of putting something into DNA might be like genetic modification, right? So you're having maybe some concerns about that as being in the language, and you're just noticing other people are using it as well. So I think that was the time too.
Okay, that's lovely. I feel perfectly heard. Thank you very much.
We'll come around again. I think we'll see. So Debbie, if you'd listen, willing to listen.
Yeah, hi. Okay.
Let's see, I did make some notes. Oh, about the facilitation that I think that Peter was talking about. I see that too, that one thing about the empathy circle sort of as a process is it's everyone can do it. It's like to tell people, oh, you can become a facilitator. On facilitating an empathy circle, it's like the minimum bar, right? So you can kind of get people to start taking sort of ownership of the sense of becoming a facilitator. So that's something, that I've been sort of thinking about, the sort of a benefit, I guess, of the empathy circle.
So you're saying that the benefit of the empathy circle is that it helps people build those facilitation skills? It's like an entry point into building facilitation skills.
And you get a lot of quick benefits out of it, like with just doing empathic listening. I do it with family conflict mediation, and if you just get people sitting down in a family, listening to each other, I mean, it's just like the knot of conflict and disconnection sort of just slowly, sort of unravels. And anyone can sort of lead this, it's like with sort of, you do a few empathy circles and you kind of have the basic rules that anyone can kind of facilitate this. And so that's, I just want to make that point.
Yeah, so that when people come together and there is some active listening, there's a real easing of tension in relationships.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's something else. I'd made notes. I can't find what I was going to talk about. So so it's that first step, and in a sense, I think sort of one of my goals is if we can have everyone learn how to take part in an empathy circle, like it would just help a lot if everyone has that sort of foundational skill. Oh, and then the next thing is then you can add layers to it, right? It's like, this is just, there's so many different practices. We're just using active listening, empathic listening is sort of this foundational practice, and then you can start adding to it.
Okay, so seeing that the Empathy Cafe model, is practicing, that really basic kind of skill of active listening and facilitation, but that's something that can be then built upon.
And addressing the intellectualization part, that the active listening comes from Carl Rogers, who kind of developed this practice in a therapeutic sense, and then. One of the insights is that the people who developed had the most movement in their development, were actually changing, not just kind of spinning their wheels in an intellectual sort of world. It was the people who spoke about their felt experience in the moment. And if you can speak with your felt experience in the moment, it's like things start shifting. And so I would say that if you can get people to learn how to do empathic listening as a first step, and then other layers like, okay, how do we really tap into our felt experience? Like, what am I feeling now? How can I speak more empathically and more from my felt experience? That helps sort of real change sort of happen.
So really being in the present with what's arising, that in itself can really help things move forward. So yeah, being present, being able to speak about what's arising in the context of being kind of really heard, can really move things forward.
And with, you know, with your NVC background, you know, identifying feelings and also the feelings behind those feelings and naming them, it creates a sense of connection. Yeah, my time's up.
Nice to talk to you. So can I speak with Peter?
That would be great. I'm ready.
Okay. Oh, hi. So I think I want to carry on this the theme of the language. I was really nervous about coming into the Zoom meeting this evening because I thought I haven't really understood all this stuff about the Future Democracy Hub. I've read kind of some of the posts in Facebook, and I think I'm a reasonably, I don't know, informed or educated person, but I was actually having quite a lot of trouble understanding the jargon and really kind of trying to understand what the purpose of this kind of was what was the connection to sort of taking action on climate change.
So there's, I think there's about 3 things in there. But
sorry.
No, that's fine. What I think I hear you saying, and was that you came into this feeling a bit, well, you said feeling a bit nervous because having done a little bit of homework, you're thinking, I'm not sure I understand this, or I'm not sure I've quite got what's going on. And in particular, something which you mentioned before, actually, how all this, so what's the connection between the facilitators army and all of that, facilitating network and the and climate change itself. So where's the link?
Yeah, I mean, I've realized that for me, actually taking practical on the ground action, so having been arrested, sat under a boat, I actually feel purposeful in that. And whilst I really love the Empathy Cafe, love being in circle, as Dita says, I love that feeling of safety and love sitting in circle, I can't quite make the link between that kind of on the ground action and this kind of concept of a facilitator network.
Okay, so what I hear you doing is, or saying is to elaborate on that point, really, that you don't see or don't yet see the link between these sorts of skills, the kind of thing we're doing now, much as you might like it, and your need to take action in an emergency. Yeah.
I think it's almost coming at something from two ends, from a kind of almost a conceptual idea versus really taking action on the ground, as it were.
I think that what I heard you do was strengthen what you said before, that that's what you're in a sense still struggling with, that where's the bridge between those two?
Yeah. And I think I always, for me, need to kind of, to get into something, I need to understand the roadmap, understand the context, see the relevance, and I think in terms of this question of how to grow the network, I think it's being able to really be clear about what's the purpose behind setting up a facilitator network. I understand it can help us run people's assemblies and things like that, but I'm just still really sitting with that kind of question.
And No, I was gonna extrapolate off that, but that's prevalent. And it's the same thing that Alison said at the beginning. Really, there were a lot of questions that you came to with this, and still have, really, as to what's this conversation all about, in a sense, or how does it connect?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I feel heard.
Good. You did that in 3 minutes 59 seconds, by the look.
Oh, I love being accurate.
Can I talk to you, Dita? I've forgotten where you said you are.
I'm in Dartmoor.
And Dartmoor.
I'll keep time.
Looks like Dartmoor. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Dartmoor.
Dark and dark. Good. Okay. So I'm quite taken with lots of bits and pieces. I find it hard. Well, maybe it doesn't matter really to respond, not exactly respond, but to pick up on a part or be stimulated by a part of what Debbie was saying just then. In relation to how does this? Where's the connection? And I have a couple of thoughts on that, really.
All right, you are wanting to talk to to speak to what Debbie was saying, finding the connection between, for instance, empathy circles and climate action in more on the ground.
Sure, I say it's not just, well, empathy circles, but also all of these processes, I suppose. And for me, it picks up on what Paul said earlier, that there is a real challenge, and for all of us, perhaps there's and certainly for me, there's a spectrum of sort of that's with process at one end and product on the other, sort of action on the other, and getting it right. I think he talked about, the desire to get things right and do it in the right way. And on the other hand, it's an emergency. We haven't got any time to fuck about this. Just do it, And for me, what a lot of this work, I think, plays into the third demand very much, which is, no, I haven't got it on my screen. Usually do. Which it's basically for a new democracy, or a new politics is what the third demand is.
All right, if I may recap so you find that it's very important to have the third demand, which is to have a real democracy. And can you recap can you tell me again?
Sure. Sorry, I went on too long and I got carried away. It's product and process.
Yeah, exactly. So it's if I understand correctly, you mean that there is the process of getting somewhere, and there is the product, and we are so used to getting it right and having that particular product, but at the moment we just have to perhaps not be so perfectionists.
Well, what I hear Debbie saying is a need to climb up on a boat and get arrested, and it's a product. It's to sort of it's to respond in an active way to an emergency, and then at the other end of the scale is a whole lot of let's spend a lot of time getting to know each other. Let's sit around in circles. Let's do lots of process, and somewhere in between. Both of those to me are necessary, but within the three demands, all of that's covered. There's tell the truth. There's whatever the middle one is, and then there's the new politics is basically saying we've got to find ways of doing things better, not least because the shit's going to hit the fan. We're not, well, as we can see from Australia, we're not, we are heading into a massively challenging times. We're too late. Therefore, we need to find ways. We need to build ways of working better together, so that we can deal with what comes.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, you feel that we are in an emergency and we may have to use very different approaches, like groundwork, active, let's do actions, and building up things like listening to each other, learning how to build a new community, a new way of interacting.
That's very much how I see it. Yeah, that we've got to learn these skills, to develop these skills between us as we go into whatever's next. Partly because we just do. It's the right thing to be doing in all sorts of ways, to be developing new ways of working together and just developing a new politics. And I think we are already doing it. And that's what attracted me to XR. the third demand?
Okay, you feel that we are already doing what we need to do to some degree, and that is to acquire the skills and the tools to build better communities and a more beautiful world.
Thank you. That's
Thank you.
very, very nicely heard from Dartmoor.
Thank you. Oh, it's my turn again. I don't remember who hasn't been active listener in this round. I know it's the next, no, it should be somebody.
It doesn't quite work like that, does it? It doesn't
You
matter.
can choose whoever you want.
Yeah.
Right, I'll choose Debbie.
Okay.
Right.
Hi.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Something that came up to my mind when I think Peter was talking the first time around. I had the fortune to live in Switzerland for many years, and there the democracy is a bit different. There isn't, there are some equivalents to national assemblies, but most of it is just made, the votes and everything is done per post and online or whatever. But there is a lot of, there's way more direct democracy. So I really miss it. It's a beautiful, I would really like to go in that direction. And I think building communities from the ground up is perhaps the best way of doing it.
So you're missing the democracy that you've experienced in Switzerland, and seeing that kind of ground up community building is really effective.
So one thing that I feel was really missing there is this direct talking to people, and I feel it's really important that this becomes just something very natural, very normal, that it's done in schools, in places where people work, in the families, that is just second nature for everyone.
So you're saying that actually having direct communication with each other and kind of embedding that in all aspects of life, from school and families, is really important.
Yeah, and then going back to what you were saying between these two extremes of direct action and this kind of very long process of building these type of tools. And perhaps that's something that Peter was saying as well, is that at this moment we just have to do everything. So I don't think we have the luxury of an or strategy. We have to do and strategy, in the sense of building, because when we change with direct action, we cannot afford to start building the new system. We have to start building it now. And I think there's enough of us.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
so you can really see that actually taking direct action, but at the same time doing the community building and this longer kind of facilitation, learning how to relate differently with each other, that the two actually kind of need to happen simultaneously.
Yes. Yes, I think that's it for now.
I want to come and see you in Dartmoor.
Great. Please do.
Okay, Debbie, you're up.
Oh, do I get another go?
Yep, we keep going. We have probably one or two more goes.
Okay, well, I'll be talk to you then, Edwin.
Okay, listen.
So I'm really getting what Dita was saying about the that there's room to do both of this kind of more direct action plus the community building as well. I can see how that actually creates that bridge, that they're not that far apart, that actually they can be actually quite close together and kind of happening simultaneously.
So you're sort of building on what Peter said, that you can see how the poles of direct action and the sort of the community building, the different practices, that they can go simultaneously and work together.
Yeah, that's sitting more comfortably with me now, rather than seeing them as something like oh, I want to take direct action, this is all too long and too time consuming, and it's not going to happen in time, and feeling a bit stressed about that actually seeing how, you know, XR could have those two aspects or two types of like those kind of activities going on together simultaneously. Yeah.
So with the direct action, there's like a stress. This is an emergency, you know, so feeling like this is really has to be done now. It has some stress and urgency to it, but you're starting, and there were sort of poles between that and having time and space for the community building and so forth. But after this dialogue, you're starting to see how the two sort of interrelate with each other. So you're getting a bit more clarity about the connections between those two.
Yeah, so I'm feeling more clearer, and I'm noticing some ease in myself at kind of seeing how the two don't have to be mutually exclusive. And I'm just kind of left with this question about language, how to communicate, what the facilitation network is all about, what the Future Democracy Hub is about, how to simplify the language around that. If we're talking about radical inclusion, then we don't want the language itself to be something that puts people off, because it's actually quite hard, it's too conceptual and difficult to kind of grasp what it is in its simplistic kind of sense.
So you're sort of connecting the two, they're sort of integrating, you're getting some clarity and seeing the connections between the two, but what's arising is the language, is what sort of language to use that's very accessible to people and easy and simple. And there's some terms that, you know, radical inclusion, you know, what is that? That might seem to be confusing and unclear. And so you're really looking for the simple, clear ways of describing this. And it sounds like it's maybe for creating ease with the people you're wanting to explain it to.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. So I can say I feel fully heard.
Oh, okay. You even guessed beyond what you're saying. Okay, so I'll go one more round here. So Allison, if you could listen.
Yes, so I'm listening.
Yeah, so let's see what's coming up for me. I was listening so intently. I felt really good about the listening. I felt like I kind of went a bit where she was going. So with the need behind it, so I felt kind of successful with that listening in that sense.
I think I heard what you said. You were really getting into, I suppose, listening to Debbie and getting into the need behind what she was saying, or actually in what she was saying.
Yeah, in terms of the listening, that's sort of a deeper listening with the NVC, nonviolent communication practice is, you know, it's based on this empathic listening that we do, but it's also like starting to name and identify the feelings, like what feelings, you know, am I having? Like I felt, success, it's really good. Joy, I felt some joy. So, because I sort of, and you try to identify the feeling that someone else has, as well as sort of the feeling and maybe the need, the desire, the feelings that people want, kind of behind the feelings that they have. So you kind of go deeper into the felt experience.
Yeah, yeah. So you're referring to nonviolent communication, and you like the way that part of the practice of NVC is identifying the feelings that are sort of you know, lurking in a communication between people, and I think you're talking about. I mean, I'm familiar with the idea of what the sort of the deeper needs are of the person. So maybe that's what you're saying about almost looking for the feelings behind the feelings.
Right. That's exactly it. And for me, the empathy circle is sort of like the first step. So it's like I'm looking for sort of practices to deepen the felt experience. How do we start identifying and naming the feelings that we're having, and that takes a lot more training, and it takes a lot more work to start developing those skills. Some people have it naturally, but so anyway, those kind of practices, adding those to the empathy circle is something I'm looking at.
So I'm hearing you in a way building on what you were saying earlier on about the empathy circle being like a really fantastic foundation, and that you can then build on it, and that the listening for felt experience that a good NVC practitioner does is quite a skill. So it's an add-on to the listening circle.
And I just had an idea popped in about what Debbie's saying about the action and the empathy and the community building. Is I've been thinking of doing like an action where we set up like in front of a city hall or something, and the action is we do empathy circles there with talking about climate change and our feelings about it, and the demand is that we have the city officials be willing to take part in an empathy circle. So you're sort of combining the two energies. It's sort of an activist empathy circle. And I like to do that with the Congress, that we set up the empathy, we have these empathy tents, we set it up in front of the Congress, the US, and we demand that they have empathy circles with each other, the left and the right, to talk about how to overcome this polarization, and then also about climate change. That was a lot, but yeah.
Fantastic, yeah. So you have an idea that you'd quite like to do or to get started with, which is it's combining action with the listening practice, and the idea of taking our normal democratic bodies like the Congress in the US, or the councils here, or the Parliament here, or whatever, and actually getting people to do empathy circles in front of them, including even the representatives from inside the institution.
Yeah, that's it. So thank you. That was my time, and I'm not sure, we might have like 2 minutes. Do you want to do a 2-minute circle? Then we'll have to break to back to the larger group. So for time, do you want
to? So choose somebody to listen.
To you for 2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Peter, would you like to listen?
2-minute listening. Speed listening.
Lovely. So that's, I love the way things are building. We're building on each other. That obviously gets stronger as you go along. That was really short.
Yeah, that's great. So you're enjoying the process of listening to each other and then building off what we say.
Yeah. And a thought that was going through my mind, because Debbie's request to find language to express what the context is and what the link is between direct action and empathy circles, that I think that it looked like that was exercising all of us. And as I'll tell you what I noticed. It's like my own kind of, what was the expression Edwin used? Felt experience was how I was dying to help Debbie and say, well, this is the connection. And of course, the great thing about this practice is that you don't jump in and tell the person immediately, give them the advice they haven't asked you for.
So you've been very taken with the whole issue of language throughout our discussions, and feel quite energized by that. And then what I heard is kind of like a little bit of frustration, but then also enjoying the fact that a little bit of frustration in the sense that you can't jump in with an answer or jump in with a comment as one would in a normal conversation. But on the other hand, you recognize that that's been useful and interesting.
And I'm sure my 2 minutes is nearly up, so I'm dying to just say that, I was brainstorming in my mind all the different possible uses of empathy circles. I love Edwin's idea about doing it in front of a democratic institution, but the affinity groups. I haven't had I've been in 2 affinity groups here in Hove, where I live, and I haven't had a great experience in them. So I was thinking, just take this into your affinity group, and then I've heard that there are some people in XR who, well, I'm delighted to meet you this evening, Peter, because that you're involved in the local council, so that's another possible application area. Thanks. I saw the time.
Yeah, we're at 5 after, so we better get back to the full room before without a reflection there.
Great,
so,
great.
Well,
Well,
you can do a reflection. You can do your reflection, then it's going to automatically have a 60-second.
Oh. Yeah. Well, anyway, it was fine. It was. I
Okay.
felt very well heard. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a button there for returning to the main session. You'll also be sent in 44 seconds back. So see you in the main group.
Thank you very much, everybody. Love
really
getting to know you.
Bye.
We'll have a debrief. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Everybody looks very relaxed. So just give it a second for everyone to.
It's back in the meeting now.
Yeah, we're back in the larger group. If you don't have video, just to let you know. And so we'll be going through getting feedback. Bill, would you be willing to do the timekeeping on this? I think we'll do about 45 seconds. Maybe, how many people do you have? About 30. So. Okay, everybody's coming back. And welcome back, everyone. Is all the groups back? No, still more people, more groups coming. I think that's everyone. So welcome back. So this was a shorter empathy circle. Usually we like to go for close to 2 hours and have smaller groups because usually in the first hour you're kind of getting familiar with the practice. You're kind of settling into it, kind of overcoming anxieties about doing it well. And then in the second hour you get more comfortable. It really starts going deeper. So this is a bit more of just a taste of the process, a little introduction, and hopefully come back next time and you'll have a little bit of background with the process and you'll be able to step into it a little faster. So we're going to go through and just sort of harvest the feedback on kind of what did you get out of the circle, in terms of just a sort of a synopsis for 45 seconds, like, what are your takeaways? What were sort of the main points, as well as maybe what steps do you want to do? So we'll just go through and perhaps I could just model it if you're taking time, Bill.
Yeah. I got it.
And yeah, so I really enjoyed this circle because it's, it starts off a little, like I was saying, a little people getting familiar with it. But slowly we really started sinking into it. And, questions came up about, wanting clarity about what we're doing, what the process is, or how to create this facilitate the democracy hub. And so all those questions started coming up, and then slowly we started building on each other's ideas, and then we could just sort of feel that something was starting to emerge. And so in terms of next steps for me, I'm going to be continuing to work on our empathy circles, promoting it and getting more people trained. So that's my 45 seconds. So Bill, do you want to call on people and just?
Okay, I'll go. Okay, Rebecca.
Hi, thank you so much. This was my first ever empathy circle, and I'm blown away by the work involved in active listening and reflecting. Really impressed by that, by the flow of ideas and the connectedness of the thinking and sharing. And I learned a new term, conflict resilience, which I think is wonderful. And I want to take this concept to my local transition group. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Rebecca. Lou?
I really enjoyed getting to meet 3 new people, and I think I learned I just got a really good review of kind of the benefits of empathy circle practice in terms of what happens when things slow down and people really take time to hear each other and do the work of reflecting back what they understand, and and how it can be transformational both for the listener and for the speaker.
Okay, Joe? You're muted, Joe. Oh, there you go.
There was a discussion about confluence and integration with the community as a kind of mechanism. There was also a discussion about angers and frustrations, angers towards democracy or the what we have, and angers in terms of communication. So what we said is going to happen in comparison to what does happen, and a way of overcoming angers and assumptions in terms of the empathy circle is a better format for discussion. So we find that people can change their ideas or change their assumptions more easily in an empathy circle by sharing, rather than, say, in an argumentative situation, people are less open to doing that. So we also think that it's about people exploring themselves, becoming.
Okay, great. I'm experiencing a little bit of dissonance here, so if I cut you off, I don't mean to. Just please correct me. Peter.
So I really enjoyed that. It was nice to meet a bunch of different people and have some really interesting conversations. Felt very warm and you know, and lots of really good listening. I think for me, there's stuff particularly around language that I want to take on board, and recognizing. It's partly because I'm involved in the whole future democracy a bit of work, and that we need perhaps to go through the website and things and just look at things like that and get someone from outside to really see what's likely to be preventing people from being engaged. So particularly, I take away stuff around language.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure. Peter Anderson. Sorry. Sorry.
Christ. I don't know what to say, so I'm going to pass. You're muted.
I'm muted. I'm sorry. Sean.
Yeah, it was good to get some practice at reflecting. It's a technique that that I do use in my work, but I don't use it well enough because I talk too much. So yeah, it's always good to get some practice doing that. And I'm really excited at the idea of. I thought the empathy circle was really good, and I want to really quite quickly take it to the local group now and get them practicing it. And Art, who was in the circle with me, had a memory of watching somebody do some really good, effective de-escalation in a situation that he was in. And I think that, you know, it is a skill. Listening is a skill that's going to help with de-escalation. So everything kind of connects and reinforces each other, I think.
Great. Okay. And I'm sorry if it goes off and you want to complete your sentence, please do. I don't mean to. Okay. Allison. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, it's a bit difficult finding the mute button. It was a lovely experience. It's amazing how quickly you begin to get a feeling for the other people in a group when people are listening properly, and you have you know that you're going to be heard. It's just fantastic. And I think in terms of, there was a lot of really valuable content as well. The language point already mentioned, but also just the need to help people who are activists in XR to understand what all this democracy stuff is about. You know, what is all this empathy circle stuff about? And finally, I feel really relieved. I feel a wonderful sense of relief at having actually experienced an empathy circle. So now I feel I can speak about it with others.
Great. Dita?
Thank you. I feel it was very beautiful, as people have said. It's just a very powerful tool, I think, to just be listened and to have the time and to listen particularly as well. And my homework will be to get more savvy with technology, because I feel quite yeah, it's my first something like this with a Zoom meeting, and it's quite strange, but it was beautiful. So for me, it's always like you enter into a new land when the circle starts, and now we will go back to wherever we are, and I'm gonna miss you.
Thank you. Okay, Debbie.
Hi. I loved the experience of being listened to and being in an empathy circle. It's the first time I have done been in like MVC groups and things, but it's great to actually see that you can do it with this technology and still have a sense of warmth towards the people that you're connecting with, even though you're not physically present. And the content was brilliant in terms of, for me, getting my head around more how the relationship between a longer term thing like a facilitation network and direct action can be closer together. We have an action planning meeting next week, so I'm going to take Edwin's idea of doing an empathy cafe outside the National Assembly of Wales will be my proposal.
Great. Okay. Sophia.
Am I unmuted?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you.
It was actually a very challenging for me. We had a great conversation. We talked about several things that I felt were important. And then actually one participant wanted to go out of the empathic structure and talk like we usually do. And what happened was that I told her that, okay, so you can talk about the frustration to me about being in the empathic circle and not being able to do what you want. So I felt good about keeping the structure.
Great, thanks. Carolina?
For me, surprising was finding so many commonalities between us during our circle, and we were talking about changing our habits, but also different projects we participate. And one of the things is that I want to stay in touch with participants of my circle. I want to stay in touch. I want to get email address and to exchange. That's kind of building new relations, new sort of community. So yeah.
Okay.
Something
Great.
happened.
Great. Liz? Liz, there you go.
I felt like it was really awkward and rough at the beginning. And then it felt like we kind of clicked. There was a moment there where it started to click, and we got into a really interesting conversation and forgot about our self-consciousness about remembering what each other was talking about. It just felt like there was a shift there, which is really cool since the three of us don't know each other and we just hit the ground running, and we've never, well, two of us had never done this before. It was a great experience. I think it's a really good mindfulness practice for both, for enhancing both our speaking and our listening skills, because it helped me to stop and say, okay, wait a minute, you know, did I talk too much? Did you hear what I said?
Great. Okay.
And I also wanted to question the structure and instead of like talking for 5 whole minutes. So anyway, that's all.
Okay, sure. Well, I hope to see you in future circles, and we can do, you know. Andrea.
Yeah, that was, which one, Adrian or Andrea?
Andrea, Southeast England.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's you.
Yeah, so I didn't quite have the mental capacity to talk the whole time. Kind of took a lot of my memory to do that. It was pretty good, yeah. A lot of the conversations I've been having about the environment have been trying to pitch an idea to someone. So this was quite a different format. I think it was good to hear from people in my group and hear a bit more about the empathy circles and some more of different people's experiences. Yeah, it was good.
Okay. Nadia. You're muted, Nadia. We can't hear you. You gotta unmute yourself.
Sorry.
There you go. That's all right.
I found it very nerve-wracking because I became very self-conscious when I was listening, and then when I was talking again. But it was great that I was able to say that to the others and to express that physically. And I see it as a good tool using going forward. If people are being heard, then they're not going to be in conflict so much. So hopefully politically we can, you know, come up with solutions more easily. And it was a couple of people compared it to non-violent NVC groups. It was kind of similar to.
Okay. Now, Adrian.
Yeah, I really liked also this training for me to do the my English, sorry. To facilitate the process. I also recognize that it's for me really painful to get into this structure talking about Extinction Rebellion again, because it was really hard for me, my experiences here in Zurich, Switzerland. I'm also asking myself, how can we get those people to join this process of doing this training of empathy, which need it most? And those are the violent people. So yeah, but I'm thankful for this work. Yeah.
Thank you. Richard.
What I find interesting, what came up with me again, is this kind of this subtle difference between empathy circles and kind of classical NVC, and especially this kind of reflecting every sentence. I find it interesting. Kind of, it's two ways that kind of that complement each other, but they are not the same, so to say. Kind of, and that was reminded me in the circle that we are kind of, you know, there is this difference between, oh, this sentence, oh, you hear this sentence, and this kind of sentence by sentence reflecting, and kind of something what I learned with NVC, this kind of different form or so. So it kind of was nice to sense that again, and to also sense that kind of I'm getting more and more used to the empathy circle approach.
Okay, great. And there's a woman just as labeled XR Communities. I'm sorry, I didn't remember your name.
I'm sorry about that. It's so
No
confusing. I really like the exercise. I thought the journey of it from the start, where it felt perhaps a little bit forced, but then as you kind of got into it, I found myself sharing some things that I'd struggled to share with friends about my own values changing throughout my kind of XR journey, which was a really nice thing. And then I kind of shared a bit more about what it was like sharing that with strangers, and then the kind of trust in that setting. And then other people kind of picked up that theme when it was their turn to talk as well. So it was nice hearing how we were all sparking things in each other's minds. A bit of delayed gratification in there, because you don't have the back and forth of a conversation. It's maybe less dynamic, but things, you kind of plant seeds and then see how people run with it when it's their turn. No, it was great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I'm getting some feedback that people don't like my choice of, of alarms. There's nothing much I can do about it now. I'm sorry. I'll try to do a bong or maybe something like that, or maybe some Tuvan throat singing, but it'll take a few years. All right. Mila.
Yes, it's my first. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
It's first empathy circle. I would say, well, I was surprised how kind of I could self-emphasize and contain myself and not to worry, because I've been beginner, but to give empathy to a beginner. And also, I've got a couple of things. I might write it down, because this for the begin. If there's a few beginners there, and then I could hear a lot of people not connecting with beginners. I have the answers. I have the answers. I mean, because I have answers for myself. It's beginners we want to. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Eva, how's your throat? Can you give us 45 seconds?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sure.
It's been a day of learning. I am sorry I was not able to join the group, so I guess that brought a little bit more pressure on 3 of my friends in my group. But it's always exciting, even with learning, how I can learn and be a part of it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Diana.
I find it a great technology, especially in international community, especially when somebody speaks not good English as me myself. It works great in such situation.
Great. Thank you. Okay. All right. Ivy? Ivy, can you hear? You're muted. There you
Yes.
go. Okay.
So I had so much, I was very self-conscious because of my technical difficulty. My was on speaker, that it was very echoey, and I think we all had trouble hearing each other, and that just kind of made us have to work harder to listen more, and I think that actually made it better, because it just really hit you over the head that you were really listening. And I was able to confide that I grew up in a very famously judgmental place called New York City. And I've struggled for years with how to be a good listener, because the way that I was taught to communicate was everybody talks at the same time. If you have something you want to say, just go and say it. And it's taken me so long to unlearn that and to take turns and really listen. And this also the empathy circle. We realize that in America, there's a huge divide where people feel so judged that we're all separated and we can't talk to each other. And that's why there's so much hate and anger that we're seeing every day. And so it really brought home the importance of learning this facilitation. So I wanted to thank everybody.
Great. Thank you, Ivy. Stephen or Stefan?
Yes, Stephen.
Stephen.
Right. And yes, Ivy and I were in the same group there. And I'm from near Boston. And yes, I grew up in the same kind of family, very fast speakers. And I'm being slowed now. So the idea being that active listening was not part of that. You basically spoke when the other person was taking a breath. You spoke to respond, not to understand. And I think active listening in this type of facilitation is the next level. And so the lesson really then is, or the dilemma is, how do you introduce that type of active listening or higher quality dialogue to people who are used to thinking, that it's natural and normal to interrupt each other and just talk all at the same time.
Okay, thanks. Art?
I enjoyed that. I found it very interesting and stimulating, and we talked very easily. I thought your attempts to manage us were good. Thank
you.
And I think it's well worthwhile, certainly.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And I see Carlos.
Hi, thank you. So, well, we had in our group, at the beginning, we didn't have a facilitator, which made the process quite painful to start with, really, because we didn't know what to do. Then we kind of self-facilitated between the three of us. It's been a good exercise in terms of seeing both the process of listening and talking. I have to say that I got it frustrated because the conversation went more about what empathy seekers are and not about how might we best build an XR facilitator network. And because of the structure of this being a listener, I really wanted to push the conversation to go in that direction. I wasn't able. So it's been good to see the process, but I feel I haven't discussed what I want to discuss with it.
Okay. And I think if I've missed anybody, I think I got everybody except myself. Is that it? Anybody else hasn't had a chance? Okay. Then I'll just finish up. I really enjoy meeting everybody, and it helps me handle my frustration and fears by having it shared so much. I really feel that as far as building, I think that this empathy circle process, rather than just being like a reactive, could be proactive, and I'd love to see it as an expressive, form of protest that I would actually invite people in without challenging them. So I've heard a lot of that sentiment from various, and a couple of ways to do that. As I say, when we began, we didn't know each other, and after this 2 hours, we'd be willing to, let each other house sit. So, thank you.
I'll be coming over to your house soon, Bill.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you. That's our time. We went over by 4 minutes. We have our next empathy circle is on Saturday the 25th. So please do invite friends and kind of help spread the word if you would. I had thought of doing a couple more questions after this. One was just about your experience with the empathy circle, but actually that did come up already. A lot of people already shared that. If you want to stay for one more question, you're welcome to do that, going through like 30 seconds about how do you think that the empathy circle could be used in XR? Like, how do you, would you like to use it? And just to do it, because I'm trying to gather those kind of insights and comments. So this, if you have time, you know, we had set 2 hours for the session. Those 2 hours are over. So if you're needing to go, I understand that. And but if you can stay for like one more round, just like, how do you think that the empathy circle could be used in XR, kind of all the different ways, then you can stay for that. So with that, if anybody needs to go, it was great seeing you, meeting you, and hope to see you at the next one. And I it's getting late in Europe, so but let me stop the recording.